March 19th, regular meeting of the Budget Committee to order. Let's start with the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Deb, would you please do the roll?
Jay Edwards.
Present.
Deb Janik, present. Tom Haley.
Present.
Ruth Hollenbach.
Present.
Jen Jocelyn.
Present.
Brendan McNally, absent. Jennifer Rashley, absent. Sherry Acker, present. With friend. Michael Dakotas.
Present.
Joseph Souza.
Present.
And Tom Hamilton.
Present.
Did you have a quorum?
We have a quorum. Okay, a few comments. Just before I left the house, I got a call from Trish Hilton, the town council president, and I got one from Nancy Mello. Trish tells me that we cannot entertain public comment. So if you receive anything on your cell phone, we can't.
Brendan is here remotely, just like.
Brendan.
Hi, Brendan.
I'm gonna face you like this, okay?
Thanks so much.
So-
You see Jay? Yeah?
We cannot acknowledge them, we cannot comment on what they're telling us, we cannot allow it to enter into our discussions. I don't know if it's right or wrong, that's what I've got, and that's what I'm gonna do.
Is that your bag? The bag? This black bag?
Oh, I'm sorry.
Brendan said he could see if you put the bag down. There we go.
In the
Can
bag.
you see now, Brendan?
Yeah, Jay's much more handsome now.
You really are sick. Okay. I have invited Dr. Sanchioni and Jerry Larkin to attend this. I have been told by, again, Trish Hilton, that nobody else from the school committee can address it. Right or wrong, there it is. This is going to be our final meeting with the school committee before we start doing our voting next meeting, which is still scheduled for March 24th. And without further ado, Dr. Martin, Dr. Sanchioni.
Okay, am I on? I guess I'm on. Okay, well, thank you all very much for letting us come before you again. This is actually a posted meeting of the school committee as well. And so we have met all requirements of the open meetings law as well as the executive order with regard to that. So we are fully in compliance with any members of the school committee that are here. So again, thank you very much for letting us come here. We do not have a quorum. We will, and because we're going to have very few opportunities to address the public in general over the next several weeks, either one of our bodies. I just want to acknowledge the fact that our teachers have been working this week to put in place a distance learning plan, and we will actually be having a school committee meeting next week on Tuesday at 5 p.m. that will be streamed and will allow the public to ask us questions via Facebook to discuss both the budget and our distance learning plan and the response to the COVID-19 pandemic and the state of emergency. So again, thank you very much for letting us come before you. And again, I would like to really recognize, again, because we'll have few opportunities to do so in public, the hard work of our teachers, our administrators, Dr. Sanchioni, to put our distance learning plan in place to ensure that education continues in Tiverton. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Dr. Sanchioni.
Thank you, Dr. Larkin. Mr. Chairman, members of the Budget Committee, great to be with you again this evening. Take a little closer look at our budget and see where we stand financially. I think it's probably worthwhile to give everyone a quick overview where we left last time. And so I've got a couple slides up here I want to show you. And then I want to show you some new information as you sort of deliberate and start making decisions. So You know, we spoke to you last time about our current state of our budget and where we are now with a budget of 31, again, I'll use round numbers, 31.9 million, and we're looking to increase it by 4% from the town. You can see the numbers there, which would increase the budget by 1.2 million, almost 1.3, which would give the school department a budget of 33 million, 33, almost 33.2 million. And the second line up from the bottom is a level service budget. And again, just for edification purposes, that budget represents taking all the teachers we have this year, moving them ahead 1 year, all the programs we have this year, moving it ahead 1 year. No new programs, no new staff, level services. Want to do the same thing we're doing this year, next year. We see we've got the momentum going in the right direction. We see a lot of growth in the district with test scores, with a lot of other factors showing us that student achievement is on the rise, and you know, we hate to have to impede that. But recognizing budgets are about priorities, we're not seeking the level service budget. We're seeking the 4% increase budget. But it's important to understand that the 4% budget leaves a $2.2 million deficit. And so what do you do with a $2.2 million deficit? Well, I think wisely the school committee eventually will vote to use some one-time funds, such as the fund balance and Medicaid, to drop that deficit down to 1.4 million. And with 1.4 million still on the books, we would have to take that, and you all have our budget book, which I hope is, which is as clear as I think it possibly could be, and 75% of our budget is people. We would start by making reductions, and always see, any good school personnel knows you always start with expenses because you want to preserve your people. If you have to leave expenses, you go to non-instructional people, and finally, if you still have to cut, you go to the least desirable, and you start cutting the people who do the instruction for our kids. So at 1.4 million, we in fact have to do that. We have to hit all three categories. So I want to show you what the impact of a 4% budget is on the Tiverton Public Schools. So let's start here with non-personnel expenses. And you can see the category to the left, the amount to the right, and the total for that category right there. I won't address every line item, but I certainly call out a few that are really difference-making. So the third one down, curriculum development. I mean, that's the opportunity for our teachers to work, to look at the new state standards, new federal standards, to make sure what we are teaching prepares our students for their future and allows them to be successful. Another tough cut is our late buses. So that's at the middle and the high school, where we transport students home after they stay for extra help or sports or whatever it may be. It's going to put a huge burden on families. And then another major cut is under tech hardware, our Chromebooks. One of the reasons why we could put a distance learning plan in place in short amount of time, and really was a model for the state of Rhode Island, is because we are a Chromebook district, because our students 5th through 12th grade have a Chromebook and know how to use it, know how to be educated with it. You know, this puts a little, that derails that process a little bit. But you can see here that cutting all these expenses totals $175,000. Again, 75% of our budget is people, so there's not a lot of expenses to cut. So with a long way still to go to get to 1.4 million, we go to non-instructional personnel. So we're going to cut our truant office and our SRO. I don't know how we're going to support kids who don't come to school, how we're going to support families who, you know, sneak into Tiverton and want to educate their students here, but they live in Fall River or other places. These are the people who do that work for us. We're going to cut 5 special education aides. We're going to trim custodians. We're cutting all of our library aides. An academic specialist who helps at-risk kids at the high school. And then the bottom one I want to put out, our student assistance counselor. This is the woman who works with students who are drug and alcohol involved at the middle school, at the high school. Those students have no support left. No support. That totals $487,000. So if you add the 487 with the previous slide, we're still a long way from 1.4 million. So now we have to go to the least desirable thing, which is instructional staff. So instructional staff, we're going to cut a teacher at Picasset, a teacher at Ranger, part-time teachers at the middle school in ELA, social studies, a full-time remedial math teacher, a full-time grade 5 teacher, a guidance counselor that works at Fort Barton and the high school, our ESL teacher, dropping her from 0.8 to 0.5. And when you cut teachers, you don't have to pay as much in health and other benefits, so we have some savings there. That still does not equal 1.4 million. So I went back to our administrators and I said, look, we're not cutting another person. I can't do it. I can't find another person we can take out without destroying our educational programs. We went back to our expense accounts. Now, every one of these accounts is budgeted to actuals. You can see that in our budget. What this means is we're not gonna be able to, like, we have a huge problem with our HVAC system next year. I'm not sure how we're gonna fix it. I'm not sure how we're gonna deal with, small things like, professional development, which is not a small thing for us. That's it's sort of a lifeblood of our situation, our training of our teachers. General supplies by 84,000, it's gonna have a huge impact on all 5 schools. Furniture, fixtures, all this stuff, it's small numbers, most of them, other than the 84, but they're all important. They're all budgeted to actuals. And that was like the last cut to get it up to 145, which gets to 1.4 million. So it's worth saying to you that if you agree with me, if any of you went to the Tiverton Public Schools, and I know some of you did, the school system we're gonna have next year is not the school system you experienced. And if you go below 4%, I ask you, what else do you want me to pull out of that budget book? Because I guess I'll cut the chemistry teacher and we won't offer chemistry, or I'll cut another elementary teacher and we'll have class size of 30, or we'll cut the middle school, I don't know, because that's the only thing that's left. So I know you have tough decisions to make with revenue, and so we've taken a look at town revenue. We've achieved some of these numbers from people who work here at the town, and we wanted to just sort of look at it budget to budget. So top is what we've seen is potential revenue coming into the town, but it's based upon, certainly last year's numbers, and doesn't take into account the town's fund balance. So, but if you look there, the first top section is $54.7 million in revenue. If you look at our budget and the town's budget, what's being requested, that comes in at 55.4, so it's $700,000 short to fund just our operating budgets. But what it doesn't take into account is any kind of tax increase or levy, so I show you the impact of 2%, but it doesn't take into account the reevaluation. And so the last reevaluation generated almost $1.3 million. So you have a town fund balance that's not factored in up there. You have a tax increase that's not factored in up there, and you have a reevaluation that's not factored in up there. I mean, there's a path here. There's a path to fund the schools and the town and do capital. And I ask you to please give it the dearest consideration possible to do this. So, happy to answer any questions.
I'm going to ask you to go back to the first slide and explain. I know I asked this before, but I still don't understand it. So one of the cuts,
This one here?
the Chromebooks.
Yeah.
So that was a capital request. We physically don't have them yet. I don't understand how that's a savings, because we're not getting rid of Chromebooks that we have, and we're
Right.
not purchasing new ones. So how does that save us any money?
It's in this operating budget we requested,
Yep.
and I'm not sure how it saves us any money, but
Because we're not getting rid of anything, we're not purchasing anything. I just don't understand how it moves to the savings screen.
Because it got moved from operations to capital.
right, and
okay.
we're set, and you've heard me say, we'll give up the capital.
Capital.
Right. Don't fund our capital, fund our operating budget. We'll figure out how to deal with those issues there in another way. Well, what that means for Chromebooks is when we brought the 5-12 program in, we didn't buy new Chromebooks for our seniors. They're using some pretty old books, and our ideal situation was, okay, let them use it 1 year, and then let every grade student keep their Chromebook that they have this year and get new ones for the 5th grade. And so this derails that.
So, and by moving it to capital, we did a couple things. One is we put it at risk for not being funded through capital, which generally is sort of one of the things that will get cut before we cut operations. And the second is we run the risk of devices beginning to fail when they go. So the seniors will turn in their devices at the end of the school year. They go to the 5th grade. The rising 5th graders, by rights, should be getting new devices because the devices that the current seniors have are older and therefore more likely to fail. So, and if they start to and we don't get it funded through capital, it'll be the same thing as, if something goes wrong with HVAC, where do we go next?
And I'm going to ask another question that I'm sure probably can't be answered, but I just have to kind of ask. So we are currently dealing with remote learning, which is uncharted territory. We kind of don't have an end in sight. We know 2 weeks, but there is a very good possibility it could be 6 to 8, could be the remainder of the school year. If you're watching national news, that has been a conversation that there is an opportunity our children might not go back this year. So even with the best digital learning, we're not getting teacher time. I'm imagining that there's going to be some issue when these kids come out and go to the next grade. There's going to be skills that they don't have, or instruction wasn't one-on-one. However, kind of know where I'm going with this. So our system has the possibility to be even more strained next year when we're trying to fill these gaps that we may create this year. We're in uncharted territory. This has never been done in history. If these cuts are all made, how will that even affect us even more?
I mean, you're talking uncharted waters a little bit, and certainly we're going to try to continue to deliver a high-quality education. I think, again, we have a model plan for the state of Rhode Island on how we're going to do this, but it's virtual, right? Well, I mean, we're going to have to rely upon kids doing a lot of being due diligent and consistent and getting themselves on and doing work without the support of a teacher. And when they don't learn things and they have gaps in their learning, what do we need? Well, right on this slide here, we need people like the academic specialist at the high school who looks at kids and says, okay, you haven't mastered how to write a thesis statement. We got to teach you that, because if you don't write a thesis statement, you're not going to be able to pass any of your English classes in high school. Or you haven't learned how to do variable equations, the first step of Algebra 1. If you don't learn that, you can't take any other. So if kids are coming in with more gaps, we need more people to fill those gaps, and we're cutting the people that are doing that now.
Mike?
So can I just answer Jen's question as well? So one of the things we're doing by making these cuts is we are taking away the very resiliency we would need for that eventuality. And I'll look in my crystal ball. I would say that the school closure is probably going to extend at least another 1 to 2 weeks beyond April 6th.
I might
The
take your
reason-
word on that based on what your occupation
Well,
is.
it's a little bit more than even that. And the issue is that the governor has made these declarations and closed schools and things in order to slow the epidemic in Rhode Island. The epidemic is escalating very close to us in New York and to a lesser extent in Massachusetts. So if we're successful in that, slowing the epidemic in this part of the country, that means, great, we did a good job, but we are still really at risk for, if we sort of eased up on the closures and the restrictions, then we are very vulnerable for the epidemic to then kind of escalate from easing up on those restrictions. I'm not sure if I'm being very clear about this, but I would be prepared for at least another 1 to 2 weeks, maybe longer.
Mike?
Thank you. Brendan, want to go? Brendan, would you like to ask any questions or say anything? I can put the mic up to my phone.
Thank you. No, I'm all set right now. I'm trying to follow. I think I caught most of it. Thank you.
Okay.
Sorry, Brendan. I didn't see it.
He's only this big. So, as a proponent of schools, not because I have children in them, because I had one graduate from Tiverton High School, 2011, the most concerning thing to me over and over again, and I know this is the third time we've seen each other, Dr. Sanchioni, is the rate of the budget increasing from last year to this year, and then what might be this year to next year because of the third and final year of the teacher's contract with the raise coming in. I think it's 3.5% again next year.
This is the last year of the contract.
This is the last year of the contract, okay. So if you look at what the town did for the municipal budget, really kept things in check for a year that we had huge issue with trash and landfill closure. I know a lot of departments were forced to sacrifice a lot of what they wanted. And now with this COVID-19, which Dr. Larkin just brought up, with the casino closed, restaurants closed, and the hotel closed, a lot of the taxes and the revenue that we're expecting might not happen. And now they're talking about extending deadlines out for people to pay property taxes, state taxes, federal taxes. The federal government's already put in a 90-day extension on April 15th to file your taxes. So because we're on the subject of uncharted waters, it's all around us. We just don't know what will happen. And it's hard to ask if you just forget about the capital, which you've been kind and very upfront in asking. It's still hard to swallow just about $1 million to get by. Once we make a determination like that, it is a maintenance of effort, and it's yours forever. My problem is there's going to be lots of people that are going to be out of work all across the country, no matter what kind of industry they work in. And it's scary. And to put $1 million in and say, okay, we're going to trust that this is going to work, I'm nervous again what happens next year when we come back. Sometimes there has to be concessions, and I'll be the first to say this, and if people want to throw tomatoes at me, they can. I was disappointed when I watched the school committee meeting last Wednesday. I thought there'd be a way to cut a little more on this. From the first presentation to the second presentation, and at the school committee meeting, there was no other savings. In fact, I noticed that the original Medicaid poll you were going to do was $500,000, and then it changed to $375,000. And then you took another $125,000 that you showed us tonight. But I don't want to feel like the bad guy amongst the group in saying we got to find a middle ground. The teachers work hard. They have all my respect as a former teacher. They have one of the hardest jobs, along with firefighters and doctors and nurses and police that there is. I did it for 4 years. I understand it. But at the end of the day, we're in a position as a budget committee to look at the entire town. And it's really hard when the other departments really are getting bare bones dollars and we're having to put up so much. I mean, if you look at these proposed budgets, I mean, $35 million for the schools versus, 20-something million for the municipal budget. It's a big difference. I've been losing sleep over this. It pains me. I've talked to my wife a lot about it. I just don't know where we can keep going. This can't happen every year. We can't keep doing this. I'll make this one last statement, and I'm sorry this is taking so long, but there's people that are sitting up here that last year put money out of their pocket, bought stamps, and we mailed things to people, and we called a lot of people. We got them to come out, and we got them to vote, and we told them they needed to vote to support the schools. We didn't tell them to support the police or the fire or the library, the DPW or the senior center. We told them that $400-something thousand last year really need to go to the schools. We got the people out to vote, and we did. We supported the town. We supported the schools. And I'll say this. People can throw tomatoes at me. There's a certain element of this town that is cut the budget. Justin Katz has put in multiple.
You shouldn't use people.
No, I'm going to. You do it. It's my turn to talk, and I will do it. No, it's not out of order. I'll say whatever I want, just like you say whatever you want.
I don't use people's names.
Well, you do what you want. I'm speaking.
Mike has the floor.
And I'm going to say that Justin Katz and his TTA group have cut this town again and again and again, and I hope they're happy for making people slash the reserve funds and ripping open the budgets. And the year they remanded the budget back to the budget committee to figure out how to do it, that's why, and that's where we're sitting now, is because they've stripped our town. Like it or leave it. Thank you. Thank you for letting me finish.
That was outrageous.
Oh, very outrageous, Joe. Out of this world.
So maybe, Mr. Edwards, if I can just address, I'm not sure, it was sort of a question, I guess, which I'll sort of, I'll gloss as, what do we do now? So a couple things I want to make sure, everyone understands. So money allocated to maintenance of effort doesn't go on into eternity. It can be changed based on school enrollment. That's sort of one important thing to always remember. the reason why we're here, or why we are where we are, is really that chronic underfunding since about 2015. There it is. So since about 2015, we did see increases last year, and those increases were not just for the schools. We were actually trying to support a lot of different services, all needed and important. So chronic underfunding. Again, the fact that our special education costs rose dramatically over the last 2 to 3 years. This is the first fiscal year that we've been able to address that in operations. Why is that? Most of these rises in cost became apparent to us in the spring of 2019, so basically a year ago, when we were already in we were in FY19, and the budget process for this year, this fiscal year, FY20, was already in process. So this is the very first time that we've actually been able to address this in operations. What does that mean? So we can't sort of say, hang on a couple years, we'll approve your IEP when we're able to bring it back to the taxpayers to see if they'll fund it. We are statutorily required. We will see lawsuits if we do not fund those IEPs, those special education rises. So that's where a good portion of the fund balance that we had 2 to 3 years ago went. The other portion, of course, went to the renovation projects of the middle school and the high school, as well as other capital projects. And then lastly, the last of it's going to plug the part of the deficit this year. Last point, where are the other rises? It's primarily in transportation and healthcare costs. To a lesser extent, the teacher raises both through the contract and through the changes in lanes and steps. Also, please keep in mind that since 2006, there have been 5 years where there were 0 increases, and every other contract year, the highest, I believe, annual increase was 2%. That's a decent rise, but when you give 5 years of zeros, that compounds in the same way, I guess, that maintenance of effort does, if you will. That compounds, for the rest of that teacher's actual professional life in Tiverton. Thank you, and I don't know if you have anything to add to my
I would just, Mike,
monologue.
and to everyone here, you made the comment concessions, and to Dr. Larkin's point, concession in 16, 17, 18, and 19, 4 years of concessions. Cutting $1.4 million, I think, is a pretty big concession. And I said this to you last time, and I'll say it again to shift and maybe open your thinking. I'm not sure your job is to condemn or condone this budget. Your job is simply to say it's a good budget because it's a $1.4 million cut, and let the voters decide. Because there's a path to fund this, and I showed you the path. So I'm not looking for you to say it's a great job, Peter, or poor job, Peter. All I want you to say is, yeah, the schools need this, because if you go below 4%, I'm cutting chemistry.
Right. But what if this budget committee gives you 600,000 of the 980-something thousand you want, and then a petitioner budget cuts 400 out of that?
That's the process.
So that's why I'm saying I understand what you're, this is Tiverton. It's unique to where we are. It's us. It's just what we've done. And I'm always thinking about, it's not what the budget committee, look what the budget committee did last year. That budget, I don't think was unfair, but a petitioner budget came in and won.
Can I give you a different way to look at
Okay.
it, just as a curve?
Let's stop here for a minute. Let's go around. We've already been over there. Talking.
I guess I have been listening to the news, and they just passed a payroll tax cut. Now, is that just for employees, or is that for employers also? So that doesn't help us at all.
That does not help the school committee's budget, no.
It just means that the teachers are getting an extra 9%?
It means that everybody's payroll tax is held in abeyance. I don't know the details of it, but the money that is appropriated through the relief program, I mean, one component of that is either going to be direct payments to people or a reduction in their pay, or sort of holding their payroll tax for several paychecks. And I should probably stop trying to explain this, but holding the payroll tax doesn't actually provide the same type of economic stimulus that actually giving a check to people is. But what it doesn't do, and I'm pretty confident in this, it does not change the budget of the school committee itself. Those are payroll taxes that are being paid by the employee themselves, and the whole idea is to stimulate the economy to keep
Right,
it
my
going.
question was, does it just the employee or the employer also?
Just the employee.
Okay, so we're,
I mean, there's other types of relief for different types of industries. Unfortunately, small school districts are not one of them.
are we looking to see if
That's-
there is federal money available for emergencies?
That's a really good question. One could imagine a program where they try and help districts like ours, or Boston closed for 6 weeks, New York closed God only knows how long, where they do provide some funding. I'm not going to hold my breath on that one, though.
But we are looking into it.
Congress has to look into it before we look into it. I've heard nothing in the news about that.
So there's nothing to look into yet.
No.
Well, but what I'm saying is, that's 75% of your budget, and 9% on that would do away with the,
Yeah, whether or not there is federal fund, federal aid to, other government entities, which is basically what we're talking about based on that, I don't know. There's gonna be a long line for that too.
All right, so I fully understand that the last thing you want to cut is people. But I don't doubt it's going to come to that to some extent.
Jay, just to reiterate, the cut list I showed you has happened. That's 4%. So,
Well,
just so you
understand.
understand, right? Everyone on that list has been informed, has been told, you don't have a job next year.
So in light of current events, I have no doubt that next year, at the start of the school year, there's going to be a slew of new IEPs to correct what has happened this year. There's going to be new expenses caused by that. We're chronically unreimbursed for the 25% of your budget that goes to special ed. We don't get anywhere near what they lay on us, and they'll probably lay some more on it in response to what's happening now. You mentioned that reevaluation for the town. Reevaluation's going on this year. We're not going to see it until next year. Dave Robert tells me that we've only increased our town evaluation, this is his best estimate, and we're only going to get about $170,000 more in tax revenue. But we're losing a lot of that to what we're not getting from motor vehicle tax and other things. Because of what's going on now, we dare not reduce our reserve. We could very well need it if we start if we lost a shift of police or a shift of fire because they got infected. The overtime budget for the town just went south. The same thing can happen to you. We just don't know. So we have to be very cautious about where the money goes, when it goes, and how it goes. And as much as we want to give everybody what they want, we can't. And I will make an unpopular statement. I've made it before, and next year I'm going to be showing up regularly at school committee meetings because of this. I personally, and I don't think a lot of people in this room and the voters can keep on countenancing school department payroll raises that far outdistance what the rest of the people in town are getting. We just can't do it. It's not fair. I can't keep on telling the police chief, we can't give your guys decent raises because we don't have the money, but yet we can give it to the school by default because the school committee has made that decision. We don't. The rest of the town can't. And I'm gonna ask the school department or the school committee and the school department again, please, when you go into these negotiations, keep the rest of this town in mind. You're part of us, we're part of you. We need to share the pain. That's the only way I can put it. What happened with the AC system,
I'm sorry, John.
the air conditioning system? What happened to it? What is wrong with it?
Oh, we don't really have a lot of, you're talking about what I labeled HVAC there? Heating, ventilation, air conditioning,
Yeah.
the cut I'm making? Yeah, we don't, it's just HVAC across the board, so heating, ventilation, air conditioning is probably the least of our problem, the heating and ventilation systems. I mean, they break down, right? They don't
Well,
work.
the
They need
reason I
adjustment.
asked that, we just sunk a ton of money
Yeah, and
in
I'm
roofing and HVAC.
right, and so that would be applicable to the 3 elementary schools, you're right. And the middle school and high school is still under warranty, we're not spending a dime.
Oh, we're okay there.
Yeah.
This is the other building,
Elementaries were rebuilt.
which are old.
They're 10, 11 years old, I believe.
No, I mean the buildings and everything about them. Well, yeah, okay, but Ranger, is that one of them?
Yeah, one, yeah.
Air conditioners in every
We
window?
No,
built all
it's-
3
it's-
schools.
The account is HVAC, heating, ventilation, and AC, it's just a term. We don't have a lot of AC, and the problem isn't AC, the problem is heating and ventilation. Our heating systems fail at times, they need repair, they need to be adjusted.
So Jay, just if I could to add on to what Dr. Sanquioni is just saying. So that's that's basically a maintenance line item. So, what it would cost us to, anticipate, and it's, as you can see, it's not
$1,000
huge. It's basically maintaining the systems that we have in place. One thing we were not able to do last year in our budget was actually purchase a maintenance contract for the new systems in the high school and middle school. I mean, that was one of our capital requests, as I recall, and we didn't get it. Anyway, be that as it may, right now, there is nothing wrong with the high school and the middle schools. They're brand new, should be working, and they're all under warranty. The elementary schools are aging, but nothing is going wrong with them now. But, you put money in your budget in order to account for possible things happening. Which is, I guess, one of the reasons why we thought we could, take a bit of a risk in reducing that account.
I must have misheard. I just thought I heard a statement made that there was problems with air conditioning.
I don't
heard it
think so.
wrong.
Just the accounts.
And of course, your capital requests are not part of this at all. And as I understand it, the bathrooms that are currently demolished right now and being redone, the money's there to finish that.
Correct.
And before you can start any more of that, we have to approve a new capital request. Okay, Deb?
So, sorry, Deb, if I could just address the issue of the contract. As one of the committee members that negotiated that contract, we are always trying to balance the needs of the taxpayers, the needs of the students, needs of our staff. And it's a tricky balancing act. And those raises were in light of the fact that they did have those 5 years of zeros over the last 10 to 12 years, and that even compared to most districts in this state, they are sort of in the bottom half, bottom third. There were a couple of years ago, before they had caught up a little bit, they were second to last. So, and there's the data there.
Deb, can I ask? Okay.
Yep.
I've said this before, and I'll say it again. I don't think we're in a position to play catch-up. this is Tiverton. I compare our salaries in Tiverton to Tiverton. I really don't care what Little Compton's paying, I really don't care what Newport pays or Providence pays. I care what Tiverton pays. It has been said before that we'll lose teachers if we don't keep up with the Joneses. However, if you do a thorough reading of the budget of the documents that you presented, you discover that isn't happening. 76% of these teachers in this school system in Tiverton are at or near the top of the scale. They're not leaving, they're staying. Now, maybe it's because they're a captive audience and they couldn't go anywhere else, I don't know what it is. But they're here, they're staying. We're not losing them in droves. We may lose a few. The new ones that come in, every job has a starting salary. Every one. You remain in that job long enough to gain the skills that are required, to gain the experience where you are, to meet the goals that are set. And if you have done those and you're skillful, you advance and you start making more money. Now, like you said, it's in that time period that we tend to lose people. And we may face a gap at some point. But I really don't, I'm just entirely against saying because somebody in Cranston is making more than we are, or somebody here is making more than we are, well, you have two choices. You can stay put, or you can go there.
So it's true in almost every profession that longevity is usually a marker of competence and happiness in the job that they're doing. And that's why most of our teachers are at, higher steps. The teachers that we're losing, and we are losing them every year, droves, that might be a bit of a hyperbolic statement, but we are losing them every year in their third, fourth, and fifth year of either teaching in general or in our district, when they've really become seasoned and they see another better opportunity. So I understand your point about not caring what teachers make in other districts. You want to know what teachers make in Tiverton, and that's certainly your fiduciary duty. But our duty is to make sure that we're able to recruit a superior workforce. And so we have to care about what teachers are making in Portsmouth, Little Compton, Bristol Warren, wherever it is, because that's our competition.
Isn't it kind of a large assumption to assume they're all leaving just for the money?
It's not an assumption whatsoever.
Well, I mean,
Okay, Joe,
couldn't it be
let
they're
Deb
working
go.
closer to home? They found a district closer to where they live? And finally, an opportunity came up there? Because that's what happens to some of the firefighters.
I think Mrs. Janik has
My
Let
turn,
Deb go.
my
We're
turn.
Just
coming to
saying,
you.
it's,
Just to hop on what Jay was saying, I think one of the other this is like the perfect storm this year. There's just so many issues. But we also have, at the state level, the teachers having to remain in 5 more years before retirement, is it? So I think that's why we're seeing so many at that higher end. And I think you do see across the board, various occupations that they come in, they get trained, they get those few years, and they start to seek out other opportunities. But once you hit in at that 10-year or whatever that level is, then we're going to keep them, and they are going to stay until retirement, most likely. So I think we have those costs, we have the special ed cost, we have the healthcare, like everything is hit. And I don't begrudge the teachers their salaries in any way, shape, or form. I saw what they did this past week without a whole lot of notice. I think they were told to put a plan together last Thursday, maybe, with not really a lot of prep, and looks like things are being successful. I'm seeing a lot of posts on social media, teachers who are not even, some are our residents who may not even be teaching in Tiverton, offering their services to help and ask questions and to help people get through this period. I will tell you that, like Mike, I have had a lot of sleepless nights. I work in healthcare. This is worse. This is worse than COVID-19 has been.
Are
the
you
last
sure?
couple of weeks. I can assure you. I can assure you. This has been the most difficult. It's like the perfect storm. You know, it was bad 2 weeks ago because of the cost, because of the closing of the landfill, the increase in education, the trash pickup that's gonna increase. But now with this and a loss of revenue, the casino closing, I am even more concerned than I was, and I can't even wrap my head around it. But it's definitely things we have to keep in mind. I'm not even sure where we're gonna end up. So, and again, we only vote on your bottom line. So you had to make these tough choices. One other thought I had, and I'm sure you've looked at this, are we looking at, like at the elementary level, at classroom sizes in the various schools? And is there any way to, if we have a really small classroom, to kind of move kids in between schools that might free up a classroom so that there may be, and I'm certainly not looking to have people lose their jobs. I'm looking at how we can make it work for the most.
It's a
most
great
people.
question, Deb, Jen, and that's exactly what we did. So this cut here, the Pecasset and the Ranger teacher, that's what we did.
That's what it is.
So class size, we're moving kids to a couple other schools, but in your budget book, there's a tab that says, I think, other information. Somewhere in there, you have all our class sizes. So if you extrapolate those two teachers out, you're going to see the impact, how all classes are going to be 24, 25 or higher.
Just to follow up on one last point about the reason why so many of our teachers are at step 10 or in that neighborhood. So the pension reform that went through a few years ago, that certainly made it harder for teachers to retire after a certain period of time. So there's a lot of teachers, and they're valuable teachers because they're very well experienced and they're dedicated, but that also will drive how many of your teachers or what percentage will be at the top steps.
So what is the maximum classroom size in the elementary level, like K1?
25?
Is that by our contract or at the state? Because I thought I had seen also at the state level, and this is going back a month, 6 weeks ago, that they were looking to make the classroom sizes smaller in like K and 1.
K and 1, right.
At the state level, so that
There
might,
are things that both regulate it, both the state requirements
and the contract. So I don't really have any more question. I mean, I'm not even sure what else to say. But this is harder, Jerry. This is.
I'm confused every day. Do I have to do this for the school committee or for work? Both are getting hit.
And which mask do you put on?
Yeah, and which master?
Well, soon they'll be coming out with those. They'll soon be coming out with those new cotton masks that are washable. There's some new mask coming out. I don't know. It's not going to be in time, probably. So.
They don't filter properly. They don't filter viruses
No,
properly.
well, they're coming out. They're not out yet. There's a new thing. I'll talk to you offline. It's okay. I do have some questions. And just the overall question, Peter keeps mentioning that we're not here to say you have a bad budget. We don't think you have a bad budget. We all want you to have your budget. That's not what we're saying either. You can hear Deb, you can hear Mike, all these people, Jen, everybody wants you to have what you want. That's not the question. We have a mandate to make sure the taxpayer can pay for whatever's given, right? That has to happen. And you can hear Jay mentioning it, how it is in Tiverton. And, you can compare ourselves to other towns near us, but you could move from Florida here. I mean, people can move from anywhere and compare from anywhere really to come here. It's not just the neighboring towns, just to be clear. And as Joe said, there's other reasons. I mean, I don't know, some people would love to work on a school in the middle of the city where it's maybe difficult with lots of low income and difficult, and that's understandable with the low income. But maybe this isn't is a little less stress, I mean, there's a lot of factors, so I just don't want to gloss over that. This is a beautiful little town, right? So that's a plus.
Gonna be.
So, yeah, we don't think it's bad budget. I had a question on the psychological costs that, like the behavioral, the person that you sometimes have and want to get. I thought that psychological medical costs were covered by people's private insurance. So how does that translate now to the taxpayer paying for it? Maybe explain to me, I just didn't get that.
You're talking about the student's assistant counselor?
Well, there's something called a behavioral specialist or something, or I thought you had on
In
one
our
of your.
budget? It's not on our cut list. Do you
No,
talk
no,
about-
no, on your current list of employees.
Right, it's in our budget.
Okay, so that was my question.
Yes, we have behavioral specialists in the school, the school psychologists, we have guidance counselors. All of them have some component in what we would call a psychosocial model of education, which is what we're supposed to be, that's best practice.
Right, I mean, in what I'm familiar with is, so you have the guidance counselor, and if there are issues, that is reported to the parents, and then they take them outside the school to a psychologist, and that's what why I'm questioning how much psychological counseling they get, and is the taxpayer paying for what medical insurance could pay for, or is that not true, Jerry or Peter?
Sometimes that can be part of their IEP. So there are things that are mandated, if it's in the IEP, that the district may need to pay for, such as occupational therapy or physical therapy. That's what also some of that Medicaid money is supposed to help reimburse. It doesn't actually cover it fully. But you're also right that if a given student has other mental health issues, then they very well may be under care outside of the district, and that's covered by their private health insurance. As far as I know, we cannot bill for those services ourselves.
No, I'm not saying to ever bill, but just to save our having to give occupational therapy if it's covered under the parent's insurance, for example. I'm just trying to figure out how you do that. How do you make the decision whether to put it on the parent's insurance or in an IEP? And do they expect you to not use the parent's insurance if it's covered there? I'm just asking because it seems like it's a whole change in the way
So
you do
it's-
things.
it's
Yeah.
Special education is it's complicated, and we could spend a couple hours reviewing it
Try,
with you.
yeah,
but
give me the
this-
short version. Sorry.
The short version is there's categories of special education also our students are deserving of, and OTPT, and those things are part of it. The federal requirements, so if the student needs it under the federal law of the disabilities that are supported by IDEA, we have to provide those services.
Okay, thank you. It's too bad you have to do that and not have it under the
Right.
parental
I
insurance.
agree.
And I don't mean to interrupt you.
that's okay, go
but
ahead.
Because I am a PT.
Yeah.
Because I was a PT in the school, sometimes those services are needed for the child to be able to attend to their classes, to be able to participate
At that
in their
time.
classes.
Okay.
So it's to help with equipment and positioning and different tasks so that
That helps,
they
thanks.
can-
Yeah, that's
They
good.
can attend to class.
Thank you, thank you. Did Portsmouth leaving, I think it's called the Trust, am I right on that?
No.
No, what?
The
Portsmouth-
region.
The what? The collaboration?
Trust is the insurance company.
Okay, they left the,
The
did,
region, special education.
okay, did that affect our costs? Did that affect our costs, you think? Actually, a town councilor also wanted to know that.
You were here, okay, I wasn't there.
So I'm gonna try and get Dr. Sanquioni off the hot seat on that one, because I was actually here when that happened. It did not seem to appreciably affect our costs overall. And if it did, it was, marginal. The
Okay.
rise in our special education costs are largely driven by out-of-district placements. What leaving the region did do is increase Portsmouth's costs. They're the ones that left. And at least the way they are describing it now, I think when they left, they thought they were going to show cost savings. They had a consultant that demonstrated that to them. The consultant couldn't have been more wrong. And I think the consultant was telling them that because that's what they wanted to hear. And they wanted to hear that as a means of getting out of the region to have greater control over their special education program in general, which they now do because they are out of the region, but their costs are actually rising probably faster than ours. They're putting in for a 3.4% budget, or 3.5% budget, I think, this year, and that's in the context of having year-on-year increases, far more in line with their, ongoing increases that we have not had in that same period of time.
Thank you. That's really good comprehensive answer. And then, I really do care about the special education students, and do you help them get jobs also after high school? Do you do that
There is a program.
as a program? Okay, just nice to hear. Thank you. I was wondering about that. On to the raises and the zeros that happened. I mean, the zeros sounds like you got zero, but you still had your $30-some million budget, right, during all those years. I'm not saying you like it. You still have your budget. I'm just saying, Jerry, you didn't get an increase, but you still have lots of money to run the school system. You have this. And what I'm trying to say is that just like a household, if you don't have an increase in your income, you make it work. You make it work as best you can. So I'm just mentioning that I understand the zeros, but on the other side of the coin with the raises, which is somewhat a problem for some people who've talked here. Do you think it's wise? I don't know if you can negotiate what I was mentioning before, 2%, 2%, 2%, which no one wants, of course, but I'm just saying, if you are not going to have any reserves for emergencies, and you can't maintain your buildings, or you have other things, that also hurts the students, okay? That also hurts the students. So the raises themselves are not something that would, as we already have so many at 80K, so the teachers at 80K, so those raises are, because of that, I think less urgent possibly, because they're already making a very good salary.
you
So I'm
could
just a little confused on that.
So you could certainly make the
sorry.
argument, and I probably would make this argument, that if we knew, so that contract was negotiated sort of beginning in the winter of 2018.
Okay.
If I've got my dates right. Negotiations continued on well into December after the contract had expired. Certainly, if we knew we were facing
Right.
the increases in special education, transportation, and healthcare costs that we then faced beginning, I would say, again, the dates that we kind of became aware of this were spring, probably April of 2019. Too late to address it in any kind of operations. So, but having said that, would that have been a tool in our toolbox in negotiating with the teachers union? Yeah, it would have been. But you also have to recognize that we're always balancing these different needs. Yeah.
Okay, that's a great answer, because that timing was interesting, yeah, definitely. But
It was interesting, yes.
going forward, there's probably some tough times ahead, too, so I'm not the only one asking to be really, really careful with the negotiation, because I believe that if you do that, you are taking things away from other parts of your budget now because of what we're able to give you that will also hurt students. So that's my opinion. That's your decision. Okay, yeah, go ahead.
I think you have to recognize that the most damage we're going to do to a student is by not having a dedicated, well-trained workforce in our teachers.
Okay. Right, and a lot are staying, and a lot have a good pay. So that's probably almost taken care of for your system, I hope. But I
Please
do.
come to the meetings when we're trying to negotiate
Okay,
it.
maybe I'll come to a meeting, okay, with Jay. I think one of the last couple things, I'm trying to not take too much time, but Tiverton is not really that unique when you're talking about funding being difficult. It's difficult in many, many, many places all over the country, okay? And I've heard of zero funding for schools in many, many places. So I can give you those places if you want the actual data, but it's definitely, in a specific town I read about, they didn't give them any money at all. It happened. It actually happened. I'm not saying it can happen here. I'm just saying, let's try to be thankful for what we do have to,
You
you
mean
know?
you mean a level budget, or they just?
No, they didn't have any,
Well,
nothing.
That's
Okay.
illegal, but.
Well, it was a different
jail
state,
cells for people
different
that
state,
do
I don't know.
that, I guess.
I know, okay, so that's just, I'll get the example offline. I think the last thing is kind of responding a little bit to what Michael said, that, about the TTA and the lower budgets. I agree with him, you on lots of it, you know? But don't you think that if you're a household and you spend higher for 5 years, and then you have some tough years, isn't it better if you would have spent less those 5 years? So we're now aren't we in a better position? Am I right financially on that? I mean, now we're probably in we don't have to go so high with the people that are living in town not being able to pay the taxes, and we haven't overspent, and we're more, in my mind, wise on the spending. But that's something you and I can talk about. I just wanted to throw it out to you that, you know, it might have been for the best that TTA was there. I know it's hard for some people to understand. So, yeah, because residents don't have any more money. The money is it's like a finite amount in a sense. You know, they only get a certain amount of raises. It's been said before. I think everything else has been said before. I do appreciate your goals. They're fantastic. I'm somebody who loves to think about being on the cutting edge of education, and so I'm with you, but as everyone said, it's tough. And I thank you very much for everything you're doing and your presentation. Thank you.
Thanks.
Joe?
Correct me if I'm wrong, but when I read online, with census, it says that the average $30,000, people living in this town, about $30,000 was the average wage.
No. Mid-50s.
So I'm looking at must be looking at an old census then or something, because I just saw that tonight. So we're up to 50,000 now.
Well, actually, it's probably
Average.
higher.
I'm
I
just,
haven't looked at the census recently. It might be over 60 at this point. So
yeah,
it's not in the 30s.
still, with the cost of living in New England, I mean, it's tough for a lot of people. I hear it all the time, and that's part of the reason why they keep telling me, keep running for budget committee. When I look, at the problem and the numbers you've presented, and I look at the total increase in salaries at $1.8 million just for this year. That's the increase in salaries. So I think that's where we got into the problem, so I agree with Jay. How do we deal with that? Well, I don't see that much more revenue coming into the town. In fact, we could lose money in this budget year from the casino, in this budget year, because they don't just pay the whole $3 million at the beginning of the year, or their property taxes. It trickles into the town in payments. So, I don't know.
I don't think it was $1.8 million. We're trying to check.
I was going by right here, the document that you,
The total salary increase is about $1 million.
fiscal year total increase, 1.872 million. That's off the document you gave me. Maybe you've reduced that. This
No, I
was
don't
2
think
weeks
that's
ago, I believe.
contractual.
I don't know how you, if you reduce, the number of personnel, maybe it went down, but
Well,
only point is, it's, I know contractual, we have to pay that, but unfortunately, it's gonna hurt in other areas. And when you talk about, the things that we're gonna have to cut, don't come to me and say that it's my fault, or the budget committee's fault, or the taxpayers' fault. There should have been more forethought into what this was gonna do to your budget when the contract was being negotiated. You showed the chart up there about the other communities. And that's a game that's been played for years. We call it leapfrog, where we try to, get to the middle, and then the next community tries to get to the middle, which ensures that salaries in every town go up every year. It's the leapfrog. It's been played for years, and we can't play it anymore. We can't try to get to the middle, to jump to the middle. Well, somebody has to be last, and I bet them people over in Middletown and Bristol are saying, boy, I wish we were as low as Tiverton. it's,
So Joe, just by way of clarification, the total salary and wage increase for FY '21 is $1,058,942. These numbers were actually budgeted, other than the first contract year, which is actually a couple of fiscal years ago now. So, so it's reflected in this budget too, because it has to be reflected in every budget. But they were budgeted.
1 million,
The contractual increases.
all right, so it's still, it's, you know, it's a
So,
little, it's a little over $1 million.
To your point about forethought, we were thinking about it, and no one's blaming you either.
Well, when I make my proposal to, my motion, you know, to level fund this year, I guess, you know, I won't be hearing anything because nobody's in the audience. It's gonna be a little easier to make it this time, but the bottom line is, I mean, nobody I know got a $10,000 pay raise over the last 3 years. Nobody I know. And they're not getting premium health care and everything else. And they can't afford these type of increases in their taxes. You know, I mean, the economy's booming, but unfortunately Rhode Island's economy is just, the only thing going up is taxes and, you know, prices. You know, wages are not going up like they are in our school system.
Jay, I'm sorry. Oh, Tom's still, Tom's
Sherry, would you like me to read your statement, or would you like to say it?
I'll say it if you guys can actually hear me. I mean, but is Tom ready to go?
He's behind you.
Yeah,
Oh.
I'll wait for you.
Can you hear me okay?
You want to put her up to the
Want to put
microphone?
it up to the phone?
Mr. Microphone.
Oops. Damn. But we don't have to look at you, but, so you're close to the microphone right now.
Okay.
Yeah, we can hear you.
Am I too loud?
Just right.
Okay. First, I couldn't see the screen. What was the final request number? Was it 33,174,899?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. And I realize other people have said this, and it was, I was not on the budget committee a lot of the years that the school did not get an increase, or the year that I understand they asked for a dollar increase. But I would like for people to remember that during those school years, during those budget years, the schools were working off of a surplus. So to make it sound like we've been depriving the schools for many, many years of money, it wasn't just the town's decision for that to happen, at least one of the years. And then the other years, again, you know, the schools were working off of the surplus. And then that's just a statement. I thought Dr. Sanchioni during the last meeting said that you guys would be going to the fund balance to use that for any capital expenses you may have. Was that correct?
No, I think what you're referring to is that over the last 8 years, we have used the fund balance for capital as well as for covering deficits in the last 2 fiscal years for the special education increases. This is the first year we've ever been able to address it in operations. Again, 2 fiscal years ago, we actually did appropriate money from the fund balance for operations. That was out of discussions with Budget Committee, Town Council, everyone, to sort of say, okay, well, this fund balance has grown. And that, again, was in part at the request of several budget committees ago that we fund our own capital. And so that's part, part of that was favorable operations because we had better control of special education at that point. Part of that was actually appropriating money to the fund balance. But right now, we are, even with the requested budget, we are creating a structural deficit of about $700,000, exhausting what is left in Medicaid reimbursement and the last part of the fund balance. Again, the fund balance was drawn down intentionally to fund some operations, was drawn down intentionally to fund the renovation project at the middle school and the high school. And then in this fiscal year in FY19, so FY20, FY19, we had to close gaps in special education costs that, again, were only actually apparent to the school committee in the spring of 2019. So again, after FY19 was, coming to a close or getting close to coming to a close, and the budget for FY20, the budget process, such as we're in right now, was well past the date where we could have tried to adjust our FY20 budget.
Okay, I appreciate that explanation. I think I thought that he just said that that the school, because they would rather try to keep their operational budget this year, that if they needed to fix anything, like the school steps and like that they would use
Okay.
try to find the money
All
in
right.
the fund balance to fix it.
Sorry, that maybe is, I maybe have misunderstood your question. We
Yeah.
would absolutely prefer that you fund our operations and not give us anything in capital, because that actually preserves programs. So
Right.
if you were, debating if you were gonna allocate a certain amount of money and you said, well, we'll give you the capital, but we're not gonna fund operations by this amount of money, we would far prefer that you fund operations than capital. What we
Okay.
will do about some of those capital items, I don't know, maybe it'll all go away in the spring with COVID.
Yeah. Well, and the last thing is really not a question for the school committee, but just kind of based on what Jay and Joe said. But I think that the increase in the tax rate, should not be increased any more than the consumer price index, and that's what a sustainable goal needs to be, because that's what they look at for COLA, a lot of other increases. I just think that needs to be looked at for increases to the town expenses, because it gives you a good idea, the consumer price index of what people's pay is going. And that's it.
Thanks.
Thanks, yeah. Make sure she stays alive. Yeah, so, thank you very much again for being so thorough and transparent. Like it's been said, want to give you what you're asking for. That's, and I do not sleep at night thinking about this. But on the other hand, I can't go and pick stuff out of your budget and use that to rationalize, I wouldn't do that. Let me take it off the total, because that's all we could do. So I can't do that. And I just, if I were you, based on what I don't know as much as you guys do, but from what I see, can't disagree with anything, any rationale you used or anything. I appreciate your talking about your situation when the last contract came up in negotiation. Really appreciate the the details and the difficulty that happened after that. So I really do appreciate it. I have kind of an off-the-wall question, so I got to be a little bit careful. I don't want to single anyone out. I'm going to ask this kind of weirdly. Do you have more than one person who's eligible to retire who is not retiring on your staff? More than one?
I can confirm that there, I can't tell you how many. Are there people? Yes.
Are there people? Okay.
Yes.
So that may be an opportunity, right? I know where my career was spent in a step system also, not every year step, but a step system. And I know when we were offered, say, $20,000 to retire, everyone sort of went crazy and took it. I mean, it doesn't make any sense, but I mean, somehow that just rung true with people. And right away, you'll spend $20,000, but you'll save another $20,000 where people start. And so this step machine that you have is a promotional engine, you know, for, even though you might lose them for whatever reasons, it's still a promotional engine. And I know if I was in my career, in the step system that chunked through every year, it would be really encouraging for me, at least for the early part of my career. So anyway, maybe that's a way to save a 50K or something like that, or 60K. If something like that can happen, you can give them an incentive to retire.
I mean, usually you have to incentivize people to retire, if that's what you're trying.
Yeah, come up with money.
I mean, I don't know if Dr. Sankivi's ever thought of that.
We've looked at a way to incentivize people on the health insurance and to,
Oh, I see,
and
yeah.
we just couldn't get the numbers to work.
Okay.
We didn't do it off salary per se.
Right, right.
We did look at health insurance, we did a whole calculation on that.
I see.
We'd have
So-
to give them health insurance.
Yeah, right. Yeah,
It just wasn't gonna work.
right, a one-time offer, or you get a pretty good deal if you
Right.
retire right now, otherwise you lose. Okay, so, yeah, I'm just thinking those types of things that, maybe there's ways to shave a little money that way. I don't know. So that's all I have to say. Thank you very much. Really appreciate it.
Thank you.
Before we, yeah, I'll be right with you, Jim. Last time we met, I brought this up, and I told you you'd given this to us at one time, but I couldn't find it. I don't know where you got it, where it came from.
I think the state calculates that for us.
Yeah, I don't know where to find it
Yeah, okay.
online. You can give it back to me before you leave.
Sure.
This is what I was talking about, what the step increases were, until we got to here, this big bang.
Nine to 10.
Jeff?
So one of the things about going first is after you hear everybody go around the table,
know what you're
you
saying.
kind of
It's
come
like
up with
4:30
other
to 9.
questions or other thoughts. So I'll start with the questions I have. When we brought up the $1 million increase in salaries, can you tell me how many teachers that is divided over?
Over 200.
So $1 million divided by 200 people. That doesn't equal, how much is that a person? If we were to use round numbers, obviously some got more, some got
Right,
less.
Yeah, because
but-
it's based on your current salary, right?
I don't know why I can't do the math.
Yeah, I know, like, I got,
Is it $5,000 average?
So it's
$5,000.
$1,000 for every $200,000, right? That's maybe $5,000.
and spread out, that's just this year's increase, correct?
Right.
Over 200 teachers.
But it's not,
It's not how it breaks down, but I'm just trying to figure out how many people were in that. So it was around 200.
and that also includes administrators, so that's the total increase of the
Of
payroll.
everything.
So that increases step, that includes the steps and lane changes, it includes,
Health
substitutes,
insurance.
it includes, the non-teaching staff, so Council 94 and all the administrators too. So it's, you'd have to actually say what's the full what's the full workforce of the district? It's not just 200, is it?
Oh, no, if you took into account Council 94 and all that, it'd be
Yeah,
like 400.
400.
So that $1 million divided over 400 employees, that's not just teacher increase, it's entire
right.
staff.
That's
So
all.
$1 million over 400 employees. My other question was, if we could go, the 5.5 slide, I think that was last year's budget that we increased.
Right.
Did that included your capital as well, or was
No.
that, no, it did not? Okay,
So 1 million divided by 400 is $2,500.
a person for this year, give or
Roughly.
take, okay.
Not strictly mathematical, but.
My other question is, I recently read an article where First Student is being sold, and that's our current provider. What?
Is that really?
Yeah, they're up for sale. And my thought is there with the existing contract that we have, is there a renegotiation with, if they are to sell, and if they have a new owner, is there a way to renegotiate?
Probably not.
Probably not. Our existing contract would.
I mean, I can't imagine what would motivate them to do so.
And then my last question is, if level funding was discussed, brought up to the table, if you are level funded, are those all the cuts, or what should we expect our students to have next year?
No.
So that runs so I know that there are parents at home that are watching. So what kind of education system should we expect for our students next year if you are given $1?
A vastly impaired one.
I don't know how you, I don't think we could open. We couldn't open. The delta between, I assume you mean level service, so the numbers are up here.
If you get $1 more than last year.
We would have to find another $1 million worth of cuts. That's cutting
Oh, no.
into a lot of teacher positions. Yes?
Yeah, we couldn't
10
open.
teachers?
You'll be sending out notices, and courses won't be offered. So my last statement is going to be that we are sitting here and thinking about what we should offer, what we can offer, what's an appropriate number. I don't think we should have in the back of our head the scare tactic of what someone else is going to present. I think our job is to weigh it as best possible, give the best possible scenario. Obviously, there are going to be things we're not going to agree on a number, and I'm not in a cloud on that. However, I don't want to sit here and base decisions on what another citizen, whoever that might be, is going to present as an alternative budget. One of the things that we're all allowed to do is submit an alternative budget. School department can submit their own budget as well per charter. And instead of sitting here being afraid of what someone's going to bring, we should encourage people to make a choice. That's one of the things that we have through this whole process. We get to go to the polls and we get to choose what is the best viable option for me as a voter. So I have the option to vote for a funded school budget, or I have an option to vote for an unfunded school budget. That's what makes us unique, the fact that we do this. So I don't think we should sit here and think about, okay, we're talking, level funding was brought up at this table. That's fine, that's an option. However, I would rather see someone submit a level funded budget and we submit a fair budget and then let the voters decide. Because then they're the ones that feel the ramifications of that choice.
I think Dr. Sanquioni last year had someone pay him a visit and actually try to negotiate a percentage of the budget.
I'm
Well,
gonna do the job that I was entitled to do.
I understand we live in fear. We have the coronavirus where a lot of people are in fear. It's the reality that we live in, just like the virus. We can't see it, don't know where it is. It's invisible. And just like not knowing there's going to be a petitioner's budget, tell me a year in the last 10 years there hasn't been one unless it was blocked in court. It's just reality. That's just what it is.
I have one little comment. The average, the median income, Joe, is 71,615
In Tiverton?
in Tiverton.
Deb, can you look up, what's the average home value?
That was,
Well, it was 306.
306. So the
Well,
average
they're
home
gonna
is
change
306. The average home is 306 and the average income is 76. That's average, I mean, that's average. There's some making less and there's some making way more.
That was actually males, and females are 52,765.
Household?
household is 71,000.
Yes, household, not per
650.
cap.
That's an average. It's not everybody's there.
But there could be
It
two
could be
people
people
with
in the
3
millions and
jobs,
people in the
or one
30s.
person with 1 job in that house.
Right. Yeah, I'm not really sure how much that tells us, but
It's not per capita.
there's a wide range in Tiverton, that's what we're known for, a very wide range of types of incomes, and so they're very high and they're also low, a lot of low, so I'm not sure if that helps us.
Well, I know the poverty line moved further towards the center of Tiverton in the last census.
Okay, guys, I think we've taken up enough of Dr. Sanchioni's and
Sure, you got
Dr.
other
Larkin's
stresses
time
today.
here.
All good, Jim.
It's now up to us and the voters. Remember, we only recommend, they decide.
And let's give them a little credit.
Yeah.
Can I say something to them one more time?
Yes, Jerry, you may. We're not ignoring you, and we're not ignoring Brendan.
Brendan, you've been quiet.
Brendan, you awake?
I actually just want to tell you all, I have a very good understanding now of what the teachers will be going through if they start to have to teach their children via video. You know, my husband is a teacher, so I'm getting a really up close and personal look at how many extra hours these teachers will be spending trying to manage the online aspect of teaching their kids. So that is definitely something people need to just think about, that, you know, teachers are not just the logistics of trying to set things up, trying to get the students online. It's something I know, you know, I ask a lot of questions, but I did want to say, you know, I wish you and your teachers luck with having to deal with this, and hopefully they all are able to, that you're all able to get through it, you know, safely, and the kids actually get the education that they deserve.
Thank you.
Thanks, guys.
Jay, just a response.
Is that thing rough and running and doing pretty,
Yeah.
Starts
That's
Monday.
It's gonna work fine.
hopefully there's no kinks.
Let's give a shout out to our
When he said
parents, too.
that's up and running, what is exactly that's up and running? Is it a piece of some software? What is it exactly that is up and running? Is it?
It's a distance learning plan for students kindergarten to 12th grade. It's a different program, 5 to 12, where we use Google Suites or Google Classroom.
Okay.
And in K through 4, we actually created the system. It's homegrown.
That's great, because, you know, it's nice to be able to be ready for next time if you ever need it. So it's excellent that you're getting it in place, so. it's-
A lot of them's already there because of homeschool people, so. kind of- a lot of homeschool people.
All right, well, thank you again for
Thank
letting
you.
us come before you.
Thanks, Jim.
And,
They don't send the
again,
kids.
thank our teachers and our administrators for the really Herculean job they've done in putting the distance program, the learning program into place over this last week.
Peter, can you send me an email, tell me how to find that?
Yeah, I think you can actually go on the Rhode Island School Committee's website.
I get lost in that thing.
Okay, I'll send you the link. How's
You
that?
gotta
I'll make
walk
it
me
easy for
through
you.
it.
Yeah, because you go one's kind of old too. So.
Yeah, that's the only one you
Yeah,
have.
give them this, a copy of that. I just wanted to know about that.
Jay, if I could just make one quick point. I'm just, saw this earlier, just very quickly. Just reading again that the Tiverton Casino has been ordered now to be closed until March 27th.
Yeah, that's the week, right?
No, beyond the week. And now, it was just extended to March 27th. That's the,
And it's probably gonna happen again and again and again.
that's, well, my only point is that's probably going to be this year's revenue.
You're right. All right, so
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
everybody
Hi, Sally.
received the email I sent you. It had documents number 1, 2, 3, and 4. Well, I sent you 2 emails. One was these without the numbers on them, and then another one was an explanation of what these were and numbered. The one you really want to look at is number 1. As I had mentioned, this, what?
Can you talk into the microphone?
Oh, yeah,
Thank you.
this is microphone.
Which one are we looking at?
Number 1.
We don't have numbers on the pages, is it?
Yeah, we don't know.
Yeah, you did.
So which one?
Okay.
Unless you printed them.
Okay, I got it.
All right, so number 1, the first column is what the FTR last year was, the current year was, fiscal year 20. The second column is fiscal year 21, what we're discussing now. It incorporates what the school department sent us in a letter as their requested budget. It incorporates the school capital as it exists now, the municipal budget as modified by the town council on March 3rd, the municipal capital that was part of that. And if you work your way down, it's sort of like the way we developed the tax levy worksheet. It tells you what the tangible levy is, what the allowable max 4% increase is. That's what we can get to. And then what, at the very bottom, what the proposed tax levy would be and what the percentage is. This is not an official document, it's not finalized, it's based a lot on just what we know now. Not meant to scare anybody, it's just to be informative.
Sure.
The way this started, a couple of weeks ago, I started getting nervous about what the percentages were gonna turn out to be, so I did them. And I said, oh my God, this can't be right. So I sent a copy to Tom and I sent a copy to Brendan and said, Brendan's done it before. Tom's our docket
What's the magic
math technician.
function?
And I hope, against hope, that they would say, oh, you dummy, you did this wrong, you did that wrong. Well, they didn't. As a matter of fact, they said, you're right.
Right there, it should be there. No?
I said, this isn't good. So then I called
See
Denise
if this'll
Searle,
save it.
and I said, and I wanted to verify some numbers to make sure I had the right numbers. And at that time, she said, oh, fancy that, I'm doing the same thing on a request of Dr. Sanchioni. She got done with all of it, and she sent it to me. I looked at that, and I said, well, God, she agrees with me, this is even worse. So that was the first stab at it, and then we got the town council's version, we incorporated those numbers, and then we got the school committee's version, and we incorporated those numbers. So that's what document number 1 ends up presenting. And as you can see, things aren't particularly good.
Question.
Yeah.
So we just had the school department come in for us, and they said they'd give up all the capital. They would-
Yeah, I made no attempt to take anything out.
But I'm saying just for purposes, they've already said they'll take it all out. Can we start by taking it out, knowing that that's, like, it's not a year, I'm just gonna say this, and I'm a supporter of schools, but it's not a year to give it. And they've already said that they would take it out. So if we take that out at it's almost $600,000.
Well, let me make a comment on that.
Okay.
I'll refer you to number 4. Looks like this. This is the one Tom did. And one of the things he did, if you look at the bottom right-hand corner of this, you'll see 4 yellow highlighted blocks. The first one, if you look over on proposed, says minus the school capital. tells us, if you look at that, what the average household, what the average house tax would be, what the percentage of increase would be over last year, what the dollar amount would be. Under that is school level funded. Under that is school municipal level funded. And under that is everything level funded, and that's the one I didn't understand.
The only one that I have kind of an issue, the way that this was done, it was like done with specifically school, then municipal, level funded. But we didn't take out the, like, when we sit and go through every department, like capital items, like now in lieu of where we are that we weren't with two weeks ago, can we look at the capital for the municipal side and go, just like we're saying, for the schools right now, this isn't, or where I'm saying, just for the schools right now, this isn't a good move. What about on the municipal side? Are there things that we can look at that would, because they're not kind of factored in this,
Oh,
right?
yeah.
Yeah.
Don't
can
get
you
me
see the
wrong.
screen?
This was just information.
Yeah,
It's just basic scenarios, and it's not
All
all
right, I'll
scenarios.
try to
It's
send you
just
the
assuming,
screenshot. But we're having trouble.
it's just using the information we have
That's
now.
fine.
Yes,
I
we
mean,
could
on
go
the
back
form
and we
they're
could try to
looking
take some more out of the municipal
Oh,
budget.
okay.
and I'm
Or we
wondering-
may add a few things back.
back. And I'm just wondering from the council side, I know they had to have everything in by a
in
certain
the-
point,
yeah, it's
but
in Jay's
in
email.
the current
You get Jay's email.
environment that we're in, did they have any suggestions from the capital
Yeah.
side that could go, we really wanted this year, but in lieu of where we are?
Does he said that they're highlighted?
Yeah.
I don't know
This is the
what
one he's waving
what
around right
the
now.
budget, I don't know
Hold
what
on.
the town council's rationale was, other than what I see in the March 3rd budget for the the town side that they gave us.
And I'm not,
What they discussed, I have no clue.
and I'm not saying that there's any particular item that I'm looking at, I'm just asking as a question.
So, like, we have not voted on a thing, but we have to start the 24th. And by the way, as far as I know, the April 2nd deadline has not gone away. So
It's by charters.
that's our target. Now, if at some point they come back to us and say, no, you don't really have to hit that, then we could decide among ourselves, do we want to or not. But for right now, March or April 2nd, midnight,
I just sent it.
is our drop dead date.
That's by charter. I don't think we'll be able to change that.
No, and I don't, yeah, so that's why I say I don't think it's gonna change. Unless the state gives every community a blanket immunity and say you don't have to do that. But we can do it. We just may have to work a little harder. Especially since I blew a meeting. So, Is
Just-
everybody clear on what these are?
Yeah, just on the municipal side, I had suggested cutting paving, and I was like, ooh, we don't want to cut paving. But you know what? We'll never spend the amount of, we still have $500,000 sitting there
For what?
in the paving account this year that we haven't spent.
Well, 2 streets over from me, they're
Yeah,
spending
they
it.
just started, they're doing Warren,
Well,
they're doing Primrose.
Believe me, they're not, yeah, well, okay, if they spend $500,000 between
But, Joe,
now and
you do
June.
understand that a lot of that paving is weather time of year driven.
I mean,
I do realize that, but we didn't do anything last fall. That's why there's still a
I
surplus.
agree with you there. Okay, so. Does anybody here, do I need to go over how the budget, how the docket is developed?
No.
We've all been in this rodeo before. Do you understand budget docket development?
no, but I will pick it up as I go along.
Okay.
I mean, I'm
It's just a worksheet
Yeah.
that you just plug all the numbers in, and you ultimately end up with
Tax rate.
a tax rate.
well, in that case, I've been doing that for
I mean, it's not
50
complicated.
years, yeah, just not with taxes.
The math, actually,
I mean, I just know that right now, for some reason, I don't know why my wife does it, but she pays her taxes monthly. My wife.
Oh, okay.
The city taxes. Yeah, I guess there's an option where you can pay monthly and not, and Right now, that is my second largest budget item for the month. I have a mortgage.
You
and
must
then I
have a mortgage.
Yeah, because that's how you.
Mortgage
if you have a
and
mortgage,
taxes,
that's
but,
usually
and that's
it.
it. But that's the second highest item right now.
Yeah.
And I've earned every last penny I've ever earned, I'm gonna earn. I'm retired, I live on a fixed income. They say they can't cut any more, and it's still gonna go up 4% or whatever percentage they want it to go up. I can't do that. My income is not gonna go up every year like they're wanting.
Yours and many.
Well, I know, but the thing is.
I'm just agreeing
Right now,
with
we have one of the best school systems in the state, and it's like, do we need a Cadillac school system? I don't drive a Cadillac.
That's the decision the voters have to make.
I mean, I've had 3 kids go through the school system and 3 grandkids go through the school system. I mean, and I would love to just write them a check for everything they want, but I can't. And there are other people like me.
Everybody on Social Security, which is 26% of the tax,
Yep.
or 16%.
Yeah.
All right, so in a nutshell, we take the municipal expenses.
Right,
We add the school expenses.
right,
We add capital expenses for both.
right.
We take out non-property tax revenue, subtract that. Motor vehicle tax. We end up with a tax levy. To that, we add abatements.
Right.
Abatements are challenges that you might make to your tax. So you say, I don't think my property's worth 200,000, it's worth 80,000. You know, so
Right.
we end up with an abatement. So they come up with a magic number for that.
Right.
It's like 20 grand. All right, then you take that tax levy. You divide it by the net valuation of the town, 3 billion to the,
Right.
whatever it is. You divide or multiply that by 1,000, that gives you the
Yeah.
tax rate.
Yeah.
Last year it was 15.
Yeah,
That's in a nutshell how it's done.
right. Now, are they assessing the houses at market value, or, I mean, it used to be they would assess you at,
You know what? Everybody knows the manor, what is it? Is it Secana Bay? Not Secana Bay Manor. Brookdale. It's sold, it's selling. It was appraised at 20 million, it's sold for 30.
right,
And I think too, like, sitting here today versus 2 weeks ago, what current market value,
Right, that's-
we don't know what current market value is, because some of us, like, I have a single level raised ranch. Those are very popular right now, you know, saw a big
Right.
increase on the market. Do I think I could get what I could get for it 4 days ago today? Probably not.
Yeah, so in a lot of cases, the valuation is driven by the market. Like your house, they're taxing you on is worth 180,000, and then you sell it tomorrow for 300.
right,
Well, we did a sort of what they call statistical evaluation last year. Everybody got a shock. Now we're doing the state mandated real evaluation, where they
10-year.
actually look.
It's the 10-year one, right? 10-year one.
yeah, they just did my house last week,
Okay, so you're done,
yeah,
but they haven't told you what it is.
oh, no. And that's when I mean, cause I just,
What
all
kind of
that, all last year, I painted the house and had new gutters put on and a new generator and.
You
I mean-
fool!
I mean, well, I'm looking at everything I'm doing now is gonna be the last time I ever do it. And,
So I guess the short answer to is the evaluation reflect the market? Maybe in the most recent sale cases it does, but averagely it probably doesn't. It's just based on last year and the year
Yes.
before. And we do tax it 100%.
yeah,
Jay?
Yes.
So I gave you this copy from the building inspector of the deficiencies at the library. Nobody
I
else,
talked
all right, nobody else on the committee received this, and we haven't we haven't received a cost estimate. So we don't really know how we're gonna budget repairs at the library, or is it gonna be done by their trust fund?
I can tell you, I talked to him the day after you gave me that, and he told me they were going to have a meeting with some contractor. They're gonna put out an RFP.
All right, that's, finally. Should've did that 2 months ago, but, okay.
Well, I can only tell you what he told me.
Yeah.
You know, I'm not gonna manage them.
Well, my point is, we're not gonna have numbers before we put the budget together.
Maybe,
So, we're just gonna,
okay.
I think that was a concern, to make sure that that happened this year, only because the longer it waits, the more deteriorated the building's gonna be.
You work with what you have.
Yeah,
Well, also, the town council, as part of their budget proposal, reduced what was gonna be given to the library. So that's a concern. Everybody knows that part of our job is to review and revote resolutions. And we have the resolutions for fiscal year 20 are available online as part of the budget document that was approved at the FPO.
what the resolve was. We were gonna approve.
So rather than sit here and read every one, I would ask everybody to go through those, read them, see if you think anything needs to be changed, added, deleted. Keep in mind that last year, we had ours and we had the town councils. And when they went to the FDR, some of ours got approved, some of theirs got approved, some of, you know. What we can do is, if we present our own, and then if the town council presents us some, which they have not even started to do yet, if we adopt theirs, then they become ours. So there won't be a town council resolution on the table, it'll just be ours.
I'm not sure whose resolve it is, but for the last, I don't know, maybe 8 budget seasons, we've been putting resolves on that 25% of any sales at the industrial park.
That's still there.
All right, now, to me, I think that should come off this year. Well, for one, they've already got a surplus over $400,000 that's sitting there, and
Some of that's gonna go to the road.
if that center actually goes there, I don't seriously think I'm willing to spend $1 million for that center.
When did it become $1 million?
It's $400,000 for the road and then $600,000 for the,
$50,000 for the roads.
no, they talked about spending it's not just a road. We gotta put in telephone poles, run a power line down there. There's a lot of construction that has to be done. When I saw the numbers, they were talking about using $400,000 on road construction and $600,000 for construction of
There
the
was two
facility.
presentations. One was one site, and the other one was a different site.
They chose the one way in the back of the industrial park above Stafford
Yeah,
Pond.
that's the $50,000 road. The other one needed some god-awful expensive road. I don't know why.
I watched the council meeting, and I heard that there's up to $1 million being spent.
Well, we need to look at that again.
And the 400 would be money that was brought into the town by sales of the industrial park. So there's, to have that resolve still in there, I think, it's an account that's becoming excessive.
It's still there now, and we need to decide if we want to institute it, or, keep it. But they
Yeah.
have to be revoted every year,
Yeah.
which,
But was that the budget committees, or was that
That's-
the council?
I think
that was the
I
council's.
think I initially, when I was on the budget committee with Wojciak, made the initial proposal when I was on the budget committee. Whether or
been
not
there
the,
for years.
no, when I was on the budget committee before I was on the council. Because we had the industrial park sales, which was, not sure if it was the power plant, what it was, but No, it couldn't have been the power plant, they've been there too long.
It goes into a restricted infrastructure account
Yeah.
that carries over year to year.
It was to fix the road going in front of the police department. Fortunately, Longplex paid for all that, so now we still have all that money in there. Longplex also paid for the water line, so all that infrastructure was paid for by that developer, so the money's still sitting in that account. So,
Restricted?
well, it's for developing the industrial park. But I'm saying if we have a sale this year to put more in there, which we might have with the one that's pending now, I don't think we need to put more money in there. That's my only point. We should probably try to put that money all into the general fund.
All right, everybody knows that the 24th, we have our, oh my God, we got to start voting. And you'll notice I sent everybody a copy of that, and I just listed everything. And the only reason I did that was I know we're not going to do it all, but at least if we have to jump around, we have the flexibility to do that, and we're not limited by what's actually in the agenda. It's probably going to take a good 2 meetings to do. And then another meeting to do resolutions, present the final docket, and hopefully be done for the year. So we got definitely 3 more meetings and maybe 4.
I'm willing to do a marathon session on Tuesday to finish that.
So am I.
I was just gonna say, can we start at 6?
We can
And
start
do,
whenever
let's,
we want.
if we, does that work for you?
Well,
It's
since
fine
we're
for
all
me.
out of
It's
work
fine
and can't
for-
go anywhere.
Well, not all of us.
for you.
Not all of us, some of us still have
That's fine.
to.
It's just have we,
You get tired.
I'm doing COVID-19, but, have we posted it?
What?
24th.
Yes.
The
I have, but I can change it.
But we still have time to change
See,
it.
I just wanted to-
Well, listen,
I
just
just
be-
think
listen,
we're,
If you notice on this one at the bottom, I put a notice is hereby given that this meeting is not open to the public, yada, yada, yada. I have to change the one I've already posted anyway to reflect that.
Okay. Do we want to vote now to move it to 6? Do we need to vote?
I think we're fresher earlier. I think get as much done as we can and see if we can.
But I don't want to go beyond.
I second that motion.
I don't want, no, I think you should cut meetings off at 10 o'clock with junk by that, you know.
I seconded his
All
motion.
right, so I'm going to make
start.
the motion for next week, for Tuesday's meeting to start at 6 o'clock, and Joe seconded that.
And to
I
go
seconded
no
it
later
with
than
the
10.
agreement that we'll do all our argument tonight, and then when we start
one of the
voting,
reasons we're
we
doing
already
it.
argued about it,
Yeah,
let's
like
just do
just
the
raise
vote.
hands. Honestly, raise
I
hands. Vote
can
for what
agree
you're
to
gonna
that.
vote for and.
Okay, so, all those in favor of that motion?
I'm a yes. I'm a yes.
Brendan's a yes.
Spread
Brendan's
together
a
the
yes.
corner.
Sherry's a yes.
There is a yes.
I'm not asleep.
Okay, so let's talk about that quick. How do you feel about this? I'll make the motion. I'll read the number. I make a motion that this is a test. I make a motion that we approve the library budget in the amount of blah, blah, blah. Do I have a second? Somebody seconds it. Do we have discussion? No. All those in favor? Yay, nay, done.
And then if it doesn't pass, we gotta come up with another number. Like, I don't, like, after all the meetings that we've had, have we not discussed, Joe's nodding, I know if Joe and I are in agreement, that's a
But the
whole
best-
new day. But, like, we've already talked about, there's no, like, we're all in a very weird environment right now. We all are, everything's kind of unpredictable. Is there any point in arguing or stressing out with what everybody has going on? Like, let's just work it out. And nobody's gonna, kind of change thought. We might have to change the number based on it won't pass. But let's try to keep things as level-headed and as,
So you want to avoid the discussion and just say, okay,
Well,
yeah, like, what have
Unless
we
it's
talked
new-
about?
what
do
did
we
we,
have another motion?
Unless we have new information, what have we not talked
Right,
about?
yeah.
And just, I feel like the environment that we're currently in, everybody is running, there's uncertainty, everyone's emotional. Let's just do this the best possible way we can.
Go ahead,
Everything's
Deb.
been changed anyway, so.
Go ahead, Deb.
what I was gonna say is if we hit a point where we're kind of blocked on something.
Move
Can
on.
we move on and
Yes.
just go through the
Go to the
things?
next one.
Like the game
Because-
shows, say pass, and you go to the next one.
Because I think
Exactly. And come-
90%.
That's
And
it.
come back to
90%
it.
we've already discussed,
And-
rediscussed, banged our heads together.
Yeah.
If we can just go through those ones that are fast.
And there might be
And then-
ones we have to go, okay, let's come back to
That's
this
why I
next
put-
week.
That's why I put everything on
If
the
there's an odd
agenda.
number,
So we
that's
can-
not gonna happen. If we vote on everything and it's an odd number.
It's only for stuff that we
Jay?
get, it's
Jay,
only for stuff we get
Quick question.
deadlocked.
Last year, we put the ones that were very easy at the beginning, like
Yeah.
she's
Well,
talking
that's
about.
the
Can
other
you,
thing.
can you order them
Fixed
in,
costs
in
are
the,
pretty easy.
in the order of, this is gonna be a
I think
no-brainer?
I put on this
Yeah.
thing, did I put on this thing in no particular order?
Yeah, but we want you to order it in an order of, this is not gonna have a lot of
Hang on.
issues.
Posted in the back. You want me to go look?
You got bonds, trash contracts.
I believe when I did the agenda.
Yeah, you
I
did,
put-
you did say that, but I'm just asking for us to do the easy ones first.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and the only ones that are gonna be the issue are the ones we deadlock
Yeah,
on.
so I'll put in there, they'll be voted on in no particular order.
said.
But I did that for that very reason. I also listed them all for the very reason that Deb mentioned. We can move on to something, move on to the next one or whatever.
Right, but my point was that last year, it was listed with the ones at the beginning. We purposely did the ones that were
I didn't do
easy.
that for a reason. The reason is it's easier for us to follow them instead of flipping pages, and it's easier for her to keep track of what we're doing.
Well, why
We
don't
can
you
just-
go-
we can just order to
why don't
move
you just
it,
order
like-
them the way you
That
want
takes
us to
time.
vote
That's
on them,
time consuming.
and hand that out.
Sorry, that's not as good as last year.
Because then I have to print a whole new budget, and,
Oh, no.
No, we can just do like she said, if we get to a point we can't, we'll
we just
pass.
move on.
Good, just move on.
We'll pass to the next, and go back to it.
Besides, most of the ones that are gonna be easy to
Most of the
decide on
time.
are in the front of the budget anyway.
In the front of the budget anyway, and we might find that
I
there's one
agree
or
with you
two
that you
that we
want a
have to
good
go,
budget in
move
the
it to next
schools,
week.
but
We
I don't know what
can't-
we can do.
We can't get past this one. We
We'll
need,
move to the next one.
Yeah.
I was hoping that Tuesday, if we spend 4 hours,
Yeah, I mean, I want to
and
know what.
Thursday,
what
we
you think is
spend
a
4
fair
hours, we
number,
could be close to
in
being
your
done.
mind. I'm
Ho-
just, I want to know
hopefully.
what's
I
somebody
think we're all
experienced, you've got the experience.
goal-oriented to be
What
done
do you
as soon
think,
as
you
we
know? I'm
possibly
just
can.
curious, because I,
Okay.
But I will reiterate
Yeah.
what
you
Jen
know,
said.
I want to know what Jen
Let's not
thinks.
be
I want to know
driven
what you think, because you're both
On what somebody else might do,
school-oriented,
let's be driven on what we should. do.
knowledgeable.
Jake, if I could, just one more point. Probably I've been talking a lot about the recycle centers. One other point I forgot to bring out, I did do some more research into yard waste. And pretty much what most places do is just another dumpster. So in other words, if we were to take yard waste, you just have one more dumpster where people throw the yard waste.
Where are we gonna take it?
Well, that's the question. So that number
What's the
has to be
plan?
determined. If we're gonna take it to the central landfill,
We're gonna pay for it.
trucking, I mean, we're looking maybe 300 grand
But
Per
that's
year?
not-
So-
for trucking and tipping
That's
fees.
not our problem. That's the waste management.
Well,
No. We budget, we pay for trash pickup.
Right, but they come up with a.
And we have
budget
8
and then
pickups a
we vote
year
on it.
for
That's true.
yard
It's
waste.
their
So-
job to figure out how to do it, not ours.
No, it ain't. It's our job. 'Cause
We have to vet it a bit. We
But-
vet it.
I have,
my only point being is we don't really have a number for that either.
Keep in mind,
Per year, 300 grand just for the.
Joe's got a point.
If we were to take
Keep
it to
in mind,
Johnston,
The town council has made the decision, and the town council is another body that can make decisions other than the public, to have a recycling center. They've decided where it will be located. They have decided what the scope of that thing will be. Now, we know Joe isn't in agreement with all of that, and that's fine, and he'll vote that way. We have to decide or recommend the funding level of those decisions. We can't micromanage it. We can't say, no, you can't do this, no, you can't do that, or we want you to do that. With us, it's all about numbers.
Right, but they have to give us a number that they want,
Well,
and
they
we
have.
vote it up or down.
They have.
So that's, yeah.
Now, that number may move around a bit after,
Right.
reality sets in.
Right, but our job is to vote on the number they gave us.
That's it.
so I have one question about specifically with, and I know it's not gonna be able to answer, I'm just gonna, like, throw it out there as a thought question. So right now, where we are, there's a lot of things that in the coming weeks, due to the environment that we're in, that are gonna get waivers, that are gonna get extensions, because we don't know where this is going, and we don't know what the financial ramifications of this are gonna be. You know, obviously, we have to create a budget, but I'm wondering specifically about, I know it's a hard-nosed close right now, that we have to have it closed by a certain date, but I'm wondering if, because of everything that's going on, if at some point the DEM is gonna give a waiver and say we don't have to, you know, you've already been financially strapped this year because of everything that's going on with the virus, you know, we're gonna grant you a year or to recoup your town. Even if we put that number in, it's not restricted, right? Like, if the town needed to move it, they could? Is that correct?
Yeah, it's unrestricted.
If they needed it for an emergency or,
But
because that's a huge number that's driving our budget too. I mean, the schools are, but so is that.
I mean, worst-case scenario, we could leave it right where it's at now at the landfill. I mean, if we couldn't afford to, move it. I mean, it's not like they can't still use it there.
Just get fined, right?
Yeah. 'cause
No,
no, I mean, we might get a waiver, like
we
if they
could
might
apply
say-
for a
I
waiver.
do not believe, think about this, Joe, too.
I don't think we
Do
really
you
need to.
really think the DEM is going to give us a waiver for that? It has no impact on humanity, it's none of that. It's an environmental thing.
Yeah, I'm
I
just
don't see
thinking,
them backing off.
I just think we don't know where the town's gonna go financially.
I just
No,
think the
but they
important
don't-
thing for this
that's
committee
not-
is how
that's
much
not
we're
something
willing
they're
to
gonna
pay
care
for
about.
that recycle center. I mean, why we need a 5-acre lot, I don't know. I mean, we're doing it right now on a half an
Jen's,
acre.
I agree with Jen's idea. It wouldn't hurt to apply for the waiver, because it would give us a lot more flexibility.
Yeah, Joe's right.
Yeah.
They're making decisions
But
now.
it's not our thing to do,
Yeah.
the town council needs to initiate a request and all that, but do you really think it's gonna happen before we have to have decided or recommended what we gotta do? No.
Where are we on the agenda? Are we under
We are at
the
the
town?
agenda where somebody needs to make a motion.
Yeah, because you know how I do it. I
I'll
want
make
to
a
close
motion
this
to
up.
adjourn.
Don't fight over it.
I got it